Good morning. This is the Philadelphia DA's office regular weekly press conference. We are delighted today to be hosted by our Sheriff Bilal, who has worked so closely with us on efforts to bring fugitives to justice and has had considerable success. She is here to deliver a message. I won't repeat it, but it's a memorable message, and we look forward to that. If you notice some of us wearing this pin, this orange pin, that is because this month is National Gun Violence Awareness Month, which I have been reminded by the chief of our Victim Witness Services Unit, the Reverend Myra Maxwell. And so you may see some of us wearing that. I want to say just up front, as a preliminary matter, we are not able to provide details at this point on the police-involved shooting, I should say the trooper-involved shooting, which occurred over the weekend on I-95. I have directed the DAO's Victim Support Services Division to work with internal and external victim services agencies to provide support to the family of the young man who died in that incident, 18-year-old Anthony Allegrini. The DAO's Special Investigations Unit is working collaboratively in the investigation of that incident, which is our obligation. We are required, of course, to do that, and we continue to gather information in relation to it. I should tell you also, for those of you who are following this story, that the DA's office will be joining state police later today for a press conference with more information regarding the investigation. Although I do not have it confirmed, I believe that will be about 2 o'clock, and I believe it will be at the Belmont State Trooper Barracks. What I hope will not get lost in the discussion of the specific facts and their consequences of what happened. What I hope will not get lost is how dangerous drifting is, how dangerous street racing is, how unacceptable it is to all of the law-abiding people who live and work in the city of Philadelphia, and how we all have to work proactively to find ways to prevent this kind of activity from occurring in the first place. I can tell you I've been in on a number of very specific meetings with law enforcement over the last few years, and they're in a tough spot. It's a very, very difficult situation when people are bringing mayhem to the streets by speeding through it without regard for the safety of others. It's a very difficult situation for police to do anything that will not make it even more dangerous. Putting aside the specifics, and we will know more of those specifics in the near future, putting that aside, I hope no one will lose sight of the reality that this kind of street racing conduct, this kind of drifting is a constant danger, and it is a constant threat to Philadelphians that needs to end. We are here today for the usual reasons. Number one, to talk about gun violence data during the past week or so. And number two, to talk about a specific topic. That specific topic will be the third in a sequence of 4 press conferences we do around fugitives. Fugitives from homicide matters. We have focused on some other sections of the city. Today we will be focusing on the Northwest. And among the 5 fugitives we will be discussing is one of the people who was involved in the mass shooting that occurred at Roxborough High School that ended the life of a 14-year-old. We will be talking about him. Sadly, that was not his only homicide. He's also wanted for a second homicide that occurred within the period of just a few days. We will get to that shortly. I do want to recognize and acknowledge some people who are here, though. We have the Honorable Carolyn Engel-Temin, First Assistant. We have First Assistant Robert Listenby. We have Sheriff Bilal, who is here and is kindly hosting us again, who has been an excellent partner with us from the very beginning. We have ADA Joanne Pescator, the supervisor of the DAO's Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit. Reverend Myra Maxwell is here, Executive Director of the DAO's Victim Support Services Division. I'm happy to see my old colleague, Tariq El-Shabazz here. It's always good to see you. Did I miss anybody? No, I didn't. Thank you all for being here. Turning to gun violence numbers, we continue to have a terrible situation with gun violence. We continue to see a little bit of encouraging improvement, but we have an awful lot of work to do. As of today, by which I mean 11:59 p.m. on June the 4th, there were 177 homicides year to date. 177. Last year, it was 214. The year before that, it was more. We are actually 37 fewer homicides as compared to last year, 48 fewer homicides as compared to 2 years ago. This represents currently a moderate decrease of 17%, and last year, the full year decrease was about 8%. Obviously, these numbers represent people. Any murder is unacceptable. We are in no way satisfied with this progress, but we also are here to tell the truth, and the truth is that there is some progress. If you look, as I do, at the PPD's publicly available dashboard, what you will see is not only these reductions in homicides, you'll see that according to PPD, there is a reduction in shootings, all shootings. That is about 17%. There is a reduction in the number of victims of shootings. That is also about 17%. So what we can say is certainly this is better than if it was going up 17%, and that we should all be encouraged to even greater efforts through prevention, through modern enforcement, by locating and bringing to justice these fugitives. We should be encouraged that perhaps we can make a difference and improve the situation. During the prior week, and this data refers to May the 26th through June the 1st, there were 9 homicides, 29 non-fatal shootings. From May the 26th through June the 1st, there were 141 gun-related incidents, 141. Of those 141, there were 76 arrests made by law enforcement, resulting in 75 cases being opened and charged by the DA's office. Cash bail fails us again, but I guess I'll just keep saying that until Pennsylvania's legislature actually wants to do better. We have 3 shootings in particular that I was going to reference. The first one is a non-fatal shooting incident that occurred on Saturday, June the 3rd in the intersection of Broad Street and Susquehanna Avenue in the 22nd Police District at about 9:54 p.m. An approximately 21-year-old black male was shot once in the head and once in the shoulder. He was transported to Temple Hospital and placed in stable condition. No arrest has been made by PPD. This investigation is ongoing, and anyone with information should contact PPD's Shooting Investigation Group. Now, all 3 of these incidents are being investigated by the Shooting Investigation Group, and therefore I'll say this telephone number now, but it applies to all 3 of these cases. If there's anyone out there with information, please contact the PPD Shooting Investigation Group at 215-686-8270. The second shooting incident is a non-fatal double shooting which occurred Sunday, June the 4th in the 2800 block of Cottman in the 15th Police District at about 1:54 a.m. 2 victims were shot. Victim number 1, a 38-year-old black male, was shot once in the forearm and once in each knee. He was transported by private vehicle to Nazareth Hospital and placed in stable condition. Victim number 2, a 16-year-old black male, was shot in the left hip and transported by the same private vehicle as victim number 1 to Nazareth Hospital and listed in stable condition. Please come forward if you have that information. The third incident is a non-fatal shooting incident that occurred on Saturday, June the 3rd in the 5400 block of Walker Street in the 15th Police District at about 10:44 p.m. An approximately 17 to 19-year-old white male was found suffering from a gunshot wound to the head and a broken ankle. He was transported to Jefferson Frankfurt Torresdale Hospital, where he was placed in critical but stable condition. No arrest has been made by PPD. Once again, for all 3 of these incidents, anyone with information, please come forward. The number is 215-686-8270. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Reverend Myra Maxwell, who is, of course, the chief of our Victim Support Services Division, a division that includes our CARES unit, which works specifically and intensively with families of homicide victims. Reverend Maxwell reminded me that this is National Gun Violence Awareness Month and may have a comment on that as well. Reverend Maxwell.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, DA Krasner. First, I want to talk a little bit about June being Gun Violence Awareness Month. This was established in 2015, and they also have what we call Wear Orange Day, which actually occurred on June 2nd. This was created in honor originally of Hadia Pendleton and all survivors and victims of gun violence nationwide. That includes all of us here in Philadelphia who are impacted by gun violence, although some may be co-victims of homicide, or even those who have just been shot, as the DA mentioned a few shootings on this weekend. The impact of gun violence has a very lasting effect on families. A lot of times when we think of the impact of gun violence, we think mainly of the co-homicide survivors, meaning the parents, the grandparents. But we also have to think about the children, because the children are absolutely impacted by gun violence. It does have a lasting effect because our children, we want them to grow to be strong and healthy. But many of them are going to schools and unable to concentrate because of the impact gun violence has had on their particular lives. We also have to remember that not just those who are direct family members, but their indirect members also impacted. Those indirect members are the great-grandparents, the grandparents. They may not be as close, but they're impacted. Also the co-workers and the colleagues and all of those people that people know. We're all impacted. And one of the things that we have to consider is all of us really want justice. When there's cases that aren't cleared immediately, there are services and supports for all of you. I can speak from my own perspective because I too am a co-homicide survivor. So therefore, when these cases happen, we want justice. We want to see justice happen. But we also want the support of community, the support of organizations that can be there to help us through this process, although it is very difficult. The help that we need is, one, we need people to realize that it's important that you help us get that justice. And we also want to make sure that you know that, yes, there are organizations that are going to be there. One is our District Attorney's Office. We have victim assistance officers in every police district. We have community-based organizations that are there to provide much-needed support for families during this very, very critical time. I encourage you, if you are a co-homicide survivor, if you are a family member of someone who's been impacted by gun violence, please make sure that you get the services that are available. There are services that are free for you. There's no cost but for you to just ask for them. We're here to do that for you, and we want to do that for you. So please contact us at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. You can reach us by phone, which is 215-686-8027, 215-686-8027, or you can go to our website. You can reach us through our website at phillyda.org. That's phillyda.org. And we will put you in contact with the community-based partners, our law enforcement partners, to make certain that you receive the services in which you so richly deserve. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Reverend Maxwell. I have a message for those of you who have been victims or family members of victims or survivors of gun violence, and that is that you are not forgotten. I have a message for people tempted to be involved in shooting, in gun violence, and that is that we are watching, we are investigating, we are working very closely with all of our law enforcement partners, and we are after swift and just consequences for those of you who engage in this behavior. Put the gun down, get away from the gun, and don't go back. And as for the public, all of us who are affected but not as directly involved with the gun violence that we are experiencing, let's be clear, Our families, our city, our babies deserve safe streets during the summer months, and we are going to work diligently on focused modern enforcement and on prevention of the type that can make a real difference and continue to push us in a more positive direction in relation to reducing gun violence in the city. We are here now to highlight 5 fugitives from the northwest section of Philadelphia who are wanted for homicides committed since 2021. I want to affirm once again the excellent work that is done by the Homicide Non-Fatal Shooting Unit under the leadership of ADA Joanne Pescator, who will be speaking in a moment about these fugitives. This was actually her idea, that we would work with PPD in order to highlight certain fugitives, and it is an idea that has shown some success. A number of the faces and names that have been put out there in the last press conferences are now the faces and names of people who are behind bars and have, due at least in part to some of these efforts and due to the cooperation of the public, have been brought to face justice as a consequence. It is my pleasure at this time to introduce ADA Joanne Pescator, who will run through these fugitives and make some other comments. And after that, I'll come back up to introduce our sheriff, who has some important comments to make as well.
Thank you, DA Krasner. Good morning. We're going to highlight 5 actual fugitives that are currently wanted, and I want to thank the DA publicly for allowing us to do this, and I want to thank the homicide detectives who are helping me along this way. The first fugitive, I'm sure you're all very familiar with, is Daron Bernie Thorne. Mr. Bernie Thorne was only 16 when the Roxborough incident happened. He is actually wanted for 2 separate murders. The first murder was the murder of Tamir Jones, a 19-year-old male, which happened on Monday, September 26th of 2022 in the afternoon outside of 641 North 13th Street here in Philadelphia. Mr. Jones was shot on the highway. He suffered multiple gunshot wounds, and he was later pronounced. A warrant was obtained for Mr. Bernie Thorne for this case on November 3rd of 2022. The next day, Mr. Bernie Thorne participated in the murder of 14-year-old Nicholas Alizadi. That's the Roxborough High School shooting. As you all know, 4 other individuals have already been arrested on this case. They've all been held for court as we speak. Mr. Bernie Thorne is the last one that's still out there. On Tuesday, September 27th at 4:41 p.m., officers responded to Roxborough High football field, 4700 Peachin Street, where 5 shooting victims were located. Mr. Bernie Thorne, a warrant was issued for him on October 3rd of 2022. If anyone knows where he is or has any information on any of these fugitives, please call the Homicide Unit at 215-686-3433 or call 215-686-TIPS, or go online, philliesmostwanted.org, and submit your information anonymously. The second person is Kyrie Dennis, and a lot of you are probably very familiar with this case as well. This involved the shooting, death, and robbery of James Watson, a 69-year-old male who was at an ATM on March 3rd of 2022 at 8:21 p.m. That was at Germantown and Shelton Avenue. He was at the Citizens Bank located on Germantown Avenue. One male has already been arrested for this case, Corey Thompson. This male is out there, and a warrant was issued for him on April 21st of 2022. The next male is Shafiq Lewis. Unfortunately, Mr. Lewis's victim is also a 13-year-old boy. Marcus Stokes, 13 years old, was gunned down on Friday, October 8th of 2021 outside of his school, the 3100 block of North Judson Street. A warrant was approved for Mr. Lewis on October 21st of 2021. We're coming up on almost 2 years for that warrant. If anyone has any information about this case, please, I'm sure Marcus Stokes' parents want justice as well. Next fugitive. The next fugitive is John Taylor. Mr. Taylor is wanted for shooting 2 people on August 26th of 2022 at 450 West Nedrow Avenue here in Philadelphia. The victim in this case, Deshaun Gay, was inside of a car where he was suffered multiple gunshot wounds, and he was later pronounced. There was also a female who was in that car, was also shot. A warrant was issued on 11/23 of 2022 for Mr. Taylor. Again, any information, please call the numbers or go online and submit your information anonymously. The last fugitive is Alejandro Tilley. Mr. Tilley is also wanted for the shooting death of George Green, a 66-year-old male who was gunned down on May 30th of 2022 at 4:48 a.m. in the 14th Police District, 5700 Anderson Street. Mr. Green was found to be suffering from a gunshot wound to the chest. Any information that you have on any of these, please call 215-686-TIPS, or again, the Homicide Unit, 215-686-3433. Thank you.
Thank you, ADA Pescator. If anyone out there has information on these people, let's get them in. Bottom line here is the public is safer once they are in. They are safer once they are in, and our law enforcement partners are safer once they are in. Let's get them in. Let's take care of this situation. I don't know that anyone has been more effective in communicating what I just said poorly than Sheriff Rochelle Bilal. I have been hearing from people for 2 weeks who keep repeating her words. I'm not going to steal her lightning or her thunder or anything else. But I know the sheriff. I know her very well. I know what an excellent partner she has been, how much she cares about gun violence, and how much she cares about bringing these fugitives to justice. And I will let her do one of the many things she does best of all, and that is speak for herself.
Good morning. First of all, we are here with the DA's office and all our law enforcement partners to just reach out to the community to basically say that we need your help. We need your help. Everybody has to go to sleep somewhere. Everybody eats somewhere. Everybody has a family member of all of these fugitives. And we're saying to you what you don't want. You don't want this smoke coming up in your house. If they there, if they eating there, if they sleeping there, you do not want this smoke coming up in your house. Turn them in. You would be safer, they would be safer, the community would be safer, and the law enforcement professionals all around the city will be safer. We got a summer coming up. We don't want to see another person shot or hurt. And if they have already shot, they will not hesitate to shoot again. So as we keep pleading to the communities at large, all your cousins, all your brothers, all your friends, all your grandma, Nana, Dee, whoever you call them, turn them in. Because you don't want this smoke up in your house.
Thank you, Sheriff. At this time, we are going to turn to questions. Please try to make your questions connected to the topic of this press conference. Getting at information of benefit to the public is actually the point of these gatherings, and thank you all for being here.